All right, so the flat cutout letter Holy Grail. So this one was prompted by new subscriber. Welcome, Aaron. Was very kind enough to drop a line. Said, "Hey, dig the channel," and was innocently asked the question that I get asked a lot, especially originally by my boss. I'm like, "Hey, look what I can do! I can make circles. I push this button. Macros. He's like, "Can you make one that does the stud mount holes on a flat cutout letter?" And I was like, at that time, 10 years ago, whatever, I was like, "Yeah, I'll figure that out." Yeah. So it is literally for me the Holy Grail, because in order to do that, it's a pain in the booty. So for those of you who are not mentally disturbed and don't work in the sign industry, playing along at home, a flat cutout letter is essentially a letter that's cut out of a substrate, acrylic, polycarbonate, most of the time aluminum. It could be foam. And what it does is it gets a stud put on the back of it, most of the time threaded, you can see there. And then that stud is put into the wall. You can see homie there installing it. And that's how they kind of stay there. So if you want that, you see this a lot. Real estate signs and stuff in the back behind the reception area and stuff. You'll see that. It's very nice. So for us sign guys who have to sit there, and when we're designing the letters, we have to kind of hand place every single hole into every single letter, and it can be quite tedious. So as a sign person who does this as a living, you're like, yeah. Do you have a button I can push where I can just select these? I push a button and, here come the holes. So what I do here is I got my launch pad that has all my circles and stuff. This was the very first thing I made. So if I want a 1/2 inch circle, I'll just push this 50, boom, there you go. So I got a 1/2 inch circle. So that would be like how this works. You would sit there and you would just duplicate and put another one there and put another one there. And that's how you do your stud holes. And you turn snap to off. But anyway, so you do like that, hit duplicate, and just work your way through the sign. Now, if the font is lucky enough to be repeat like this, technically, you've got the quick red fox jumped over the lazy brown dog. You only have to do, 26 maximum, and then you can copy paste, this one for this one. But a lot of times too, what's really frustrating is, this will be bigger. So now you can't use that. And then something below it will be even smaller. So those guys get their own set, and you have to sit there and figure that out. So the copy paste part of it, and let's say we look at some of these pictures here, the copy paste aspect, some of this stuff can be really a lot of letters. Some of them like this here, whatever that bistro is. So it can be, it makes you groan sometimes. And so that's why I get that, that's why I get that question. And believe me, it's warranted. So anyway, some of the reasons why it's very difficult to do that is, first and foremost, it takes sort of a lot of experience to know where you want to put those. As you can see in these pictures, they're kind of in the center, you want it, it balances out. It doesn't teeter. You want it supported. See where that C right there is like there, and there, like the A, you got the top there. But in order to know that, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, basically we're doing graphing calculator-esque, calculus and whatnot to know the boundaries, the area within a boundary. So if I just want to turn this gray, I push this button. Corel is doing the math to know that the almost infinite number of points within this area is on the inside of the boundary and the outside of this boundary. Then the almost infinite number of points inside here, of course it's finite, but I'm saying it's like, because if you look at the bottom left corner is the X and Y axis of Corel. So if I move my cursor ever so slightly, you can see down here these numbers just change. And those are the number of points. And if you zoom, you can just see how, all of this is within there. And those are all X and Y axis points. So how do I write the code? And I get it. We have self-driving cars. It can be done. The Jetsons promised me flying cars, but I know we're working on it. But to know that this is within the boundary here, technically, but then to know that I prefer it to be sort of centered between this one and this one, and then I wanted a kind of a certain pleasing distance there, that's where we would want that. As a sign guy, I know that. As a silicon chip, an Intel processor, it doesn't know that. So the amount of maths, there's I see a lot of parentheses. I see a lot of like first, outer, inner, last. I see a lot of, the union rules of the Sith. There can only be two. There's a lot of math rules, a lot of math going on. So believe me, I've kind of tried to figure out. Then there's workarounds, knowing what Corel knows. So you could theoretically work with segments and nodes. So Corel, if I turn Snap 2 on, let's see, Snap 2. So like here's the midpoint. It knows midpoint. It knows the midpoint of that. So if I were to take midpoint and then go perpendicular, see there? Okay, that works. And then I could just snap to that. So if I could figure out how to cook up some segments and then just erase that, hey, we're there. Problem is a lot of fonts, what if there's just a whole bunch of weird, segments and weird nodes going on? So now to count these segments and to know which segment is going to there, that's not going to do us any good. So there's that. Also, just again, the knowledge of knowing that, some fonts are just ridiculously skinny. By looking at that picture there, I saw, there's Market, this thing, it's like to know that this might be too skinny for that stud. You don't want it there, but you can see where they put the studs on that side and not at the point. That's what you want, kind of balance it. You don't want too many, you don't want too little, but also there's the whole thing of like, well, if this is a 10-inch letter, then, you have so many, but if it's a 20-inch letter, or if it's tiny letter. So anyway, so many decisions to make, and it's just really daunting. So I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm just giving you excuses why I can't do it. But the second I figure it out, you'll know, because I won't be here, and I'll be in my G6, at Angels 330K, eating sushi like Tony Stark. So, but I do have a workaround. I have a macro that I use that gets me there a little quicker. I don't do a lot of flat cutout letters. I don't do a lot of the stud like this. But when you do channel letters that light up, you still need to do kind of the same mounting holes. So it's kind of the same thing. And so this is what I do when I face this. And so it's not a macro that's made exactly for this, but having a bunch of macros like all these down here, these are all different tools that I can use that might not be for something specifically, but similar to all the tools in your toolbox. You have a hammer, you have a screwdriver. The hammer's to hammer a nail, the screwdriver's to turn a screw. But if you put them together, I know you're not supposed to, but let's say you take the hammer and you knock the screwdriver, it'll help you maybe accomplish something else. So it's like a force multiplier. And so sometimes I can take, one macro that I made for something, use it with another macro, and sort of like a macro Voltron, it'll form in and, I can get stuff done. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. And the macro that I use is called Do It All. It launches off of Mr. Goodbar here, and it's just a little guy here. It's called Do It All because it technically does it all to the shapes. What it does is it applies other shapes to shapes all in one batch. It's a batch processing thing. Also, it's a tribute. I'm a big hip hop head from the 80s and 90s when hip hop was hip hop. Hello. So Mr. Goodbar, what's up, Uncle L? And Do It All is one of the members of Lords of the Underground. They were the shot, boy. So Do It All, there you go. So I use Do It All to distribute my my mounting stud holes. So what I'll do though is I'll just show you real quick what it's capable of, and then I'll show you the hack. So I explained the problem. This is good storytelling. I explained the problem, and then here's the solution. So at its nature, at its simplest, what it does is it just distributes things to other shapes. So if I make some rectangles here, let's say we're going to route out some acrylic, which I use the ice blue for acrylic. And we've got ourselves a couple of these guys here, and they're on our screen, and they have Braille and they have other things. And we want to distribute, let's say I like these arrows. What I like to do is I like to make an arrow, and this arrow will say this side up. And what the router is going to do is it's going to reference kiss. It's just going to kiss it, and it's going to make an arrow on the back side. That way, these guys can look at the back, know what's up, and then, anyway. So you want to put this onto the back of each one of these. You could do this, right? Which is, we're kind of, you can foreshadowing kind of that. Or what you can do is use do it all. So do it all, you're going to select first the shape that you want. That's the OG shape to copy. And you press the button and it turns green. When it goes green, that means that this shape is loaded, and it means that there is a shape. So even if this is unselected now, just know that do it all is ready. It's one step ahead. So that's loaded up. VBA has it in memory. We're good to go. Then you want to select the shapes you want to copy to. So you can create your own selection. You can go this one or that one, whatever. Then create your selection, and then go ahead and hit the second button. And now that's green. And that means we're good to go. We're cleared hot. So now this is loaded up with this. And now this is the shape, the array. And now it's going to go chocolate to peanut butter. So at the middle part here is where you're just going to take a shape and you're going to apply it. So if I just go apply to all shapes, it's just going to go super simple, shape to center, just like that. So now I have that. Now I have them in the center. Good to go. Then I can kind of iterate off of that. So what if I want to put them a little off center? What if I want to make this a little smaller and I want to put it up here in the corner like that? So then what I can do is take, just like Corel, you start with the first and then you do the second. So you want to take that and you want to take this, select them. And then if you hit yellow button offset, what it does is it just does minus, it does the offset of center to center. So center of this to center of that is minus that, and then Y. As long as these have values, everything will be offset by that value. So you got to make sure to set it to 0 when you're done. But as long as there's a value other than 0, this thing is recognizing that and it's going to offset. So that's all you need to do. You can get rid of that and you can select this, and then you can select your shapes again, and then you can go ahead and hit apply to all shapes. But as long as there's values here, then it's going to put it where you had the other one. So there you go. Well, actually I shrunk that one anyway. So yeah, this was bigger. So anyway, so you want to do that. That's great. Now what we do is we want to hit clear because we want to go back to 0. So we're good. Now it's center to center. Now let's say that some of these are bent in a weird way. So let's say these shapes are not actually like sitting there nested, ready to route, but these are all over your page and they're in different directions, but you want the arrow to face up no matter what. So let's say these are just kind of jumbled, distributed, weird. Well, you can do the same thing. Copy OG shape, copy to these shapes, but match angle, select, apply to all shapes, and now it'll go through each one and say, what's your angle? And then it'll transfer that like that. Super handy. Sometimes I need to do that. I don't always do the match angle, but man, when I have it, it's great. So that's pretty much it. For this, I probably wouldn't use this, but once I was able to figure out, I can do that to a shape, could I do it to its nodes? So here you have, I'm going to go ahead and blank it. So there you go. So I have 4 nodes. Now, what if I want to put an arrow for some reason? I don't know why. Yeah, actually, let's just put a circle. Let's do a 1/2-inch circle. No, let's do a 1-inch circle. There you go. So here's a 1-inch circle, and we want to put that on every node of this. So OG shape, copy. We don't need match angle. It's fine. And then see if it says apply to all nodes. There you go. And so that is kind of what I'm thinking for this. And then you can actually, if you're wondering, this here that's programming language, C, C++. That just means every other. When you have a plus after a value, it just means every other. So if I go OG shape and I go here, and then I have this selected, it'll do every other node to make sure that it doesn't stack up. So we got that taken care of. That is kind of where we're going with this. So what we're going to do is, let's say we get the call for quarter 20 stud. So on my launch pad here, this is my OG. This is what I started with. This guy here has all my circles, all my things. So there's a quarter 20 stud. For those playing along at home, if you're going to do anything where you make things with buttons, if you want a 165, if you want an 1.5-inch circle, make sure it's only one line of code. Make sure you name everything, whatever shape dot name equals, and then put it in quotes, because that way you can always find it later. That's the secret sauce to all this, is if I want to find this quarter 20 stud later, it's named, because you can see down in the bottom left, stud quarter 20, this one here, 0.165. I can always find the 165s later. So just a little pro tip for those playing along at home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this quarter 20 and I'm going to distribute it through here. Well, how do you do that? Because I was just talking about it's tough to find where you want it. So this is a little bit of a hack. And honestly, it might only be marginally quicker than doing it the, duplicate slide, duplicate slide, duplicate slide. But what I do is I will take, and I like to iterate. So I like to keep the original, and then I'm going to work on this one. Because when you're doing batch processing like this, when you press this button, it eats up all of your undos. And if you have to back up, you might be, hundreds of undos, and you don't got that kind of time. So what I like to do is I like to iterate. I keep the OG here, and then I'll just make a new one. That way, if anything goes crazy, I can just delete it, and let's iterate again. So I start here, and this will be the one I work on. So when I'm doing channel letters and things like that, I start at the top, bring this up here, flat cutout letters, whatever, and then I just iterate down. So this is the OG, and then I iterate down. So from here, here's what we're going to do. Thank you, Rectangular. We're cool. Thank you for your service. So you go over here to your polyline. Normally it's at your freehand, but you hold down on it. You get your polyline. Okay. And then I have Snap 2 on because I live and die by Snap 2. You want to turn that off because it gets annoying. There we go. And then what you do is you are going to put a node and a segment everywhere you want to stud. And so, like I say, you kind of get your focus, get your zoom about like that, so you can kind of see what's up. Because the more accurate you are now, you don't have to do so much adjustment later. And I'll show you what's up. So you just go here. Now don't hold and drag, because that makes a line. You're just clicking every time. And make sure you don't click and drag, because it can be super sensitive sometimes and you end up making several nodes. You just want one node, but you're going to put the nodes everywhere you want. And so you start getting into groove once you've done it, and then you just hold off to the side and it'll scoot. And then let's see, I want to do 4 on the C here. And then I'm going to let's do 3 on this O. They're going to use silicone, in my little world, they're going to use silicone. And then we can just drop down here. Now we do have repeats, so I'm not going to do the repeats. Let's see. There we go. So I already did an L. So I already did an H. I already did an O. I already did an L. So we can do a Y, and we can do the G. So I zoom in. Boom, boom, boom. It's always a little tougher to be able to explain as you go. Usually I do it a little bit quicker, and it's always tougher to do it, live. Oops. So if you goof up like that, all you got to do is get rid of what you don't want, and then you can just kind of pick up where you left off. And then we can adjust that later too. So I'm going to do 3 studs on this just to keep it from rocking. And then we can just get rid of that like that. There you go. So now the idea is that we have nodes. And so what we're going to do is take our do it all and apply. And then we're just going to take this scaffold shape here, apply to that, and then apply to all nodes. There you go. And now we can just go ahead and iterate down. I'm going to erase this. And now we have our they're all laid out. And so now, depending on how good you were, you can just sort of adjust for your neuroses, how much it bothers you to have these, shifted a little bit off. You can take these guys here, sort of clean it up a little bit, kind of do that. That looks good. I can just even those out to each other. Let's make these even to each other, but I can bring this down a little bit. See, now here's that judgment that you're just not going to, I know that computers can do it, but to be able to just sort of go, yeah, that's the place. Of course computers can do it. It's just writing that code to be able to make these judgment calls. These are all looking good. Now see, there's a double stud. So I can just get rid of one because there was 2 nodes there. I kind of dragged, probably double tapped. No big deal. We can just make that even. I kind of like that. It's fine. Bring that up a little bit. We can bring these. Let's make these even. Bring those up a little bit there. So anyway, so you can work your way through. You're good to go. That's pretty much it. That's what Dual can do for you. Now, what you can also do is, let's say, I don't know if your shop's like our shop, but we're often doing the survey while we're installing. That's the first time we do the survey. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it seems like that sometimes. So let's say that you have this all laid out and then you get the call that we need to change to 1/2-inch studs. Well, that's kind of a pain in the booty. Could you imagine? So what you do is you just call up a 1/2-inch stud, right? Not me. And so what you do is you do it all. And if you look down here, it's called Find 'em. And so I added this to where this is why you name everything. So I can find everything by name because I've named everything. So what you do is you can load up your 1/2-inch to the OG shape copy because you want to distribute that, do it all to all of them. Now what you're going to do is just grab one of these to get the name and you hit pick. And you can see where it now has picked stud 1/4-20. Now you hit go, select it all, hit go, and now it has dug out all the studs. And now you're ready to switch. Now you hit copy OG to these shapes. We're cleared hot. Now you're going to want to erase the original shapes because you don't want them stacked. You're getting rid of them. So click that, apply to all shapes, boom. So now we've effortlessly switched over from 1/4-20 to 1/2-inch. Now for ha-has, let's say that these are channel letters. So I want to add some power holes. So I'm just going to now do the same thing again, polyline, and I'm going to do a node for everywhere I want a power hole. And again, you know, human judgment, you're up on a ladder. You kind of know where it's strategic to have a power hole. You also know UL, your UL inspector, if he's going to yell at you or not. So you want to make sure that, you know, you got it all dialed in. So getting a computer to know these things, So, yeah, I wonder why that moved. Okay, so then you're going to hit your power. So I hit down here, I have a power, and I use a 3/8 hole. So I have a power 3.375. So OG shape to copy, and then I'm going to copy it onto this shape, and we can go ahead and erase it, and I'm going to hit all nodes. There we go. So now I have power holes, and again, that's a little over much, but I like to have a little off center, you know, because the LEDs go right down the middle. And so there we're good to go. Then one of the last things you can do is we like to do strain reliefs. We do have the little guys that you use a rivet and it's got a little strap and it'll hold the wire. But we also like to do where it just puts 2 little vampire hole marks. And that's right here with SR. So on Mr. Goodbar, I can select all the power holes. So if I hit pick, I use find them here and I've picked power hole. And now I can find all of the power holes, go. Now it has all the power holes selected. Now if I hit SR for strain relief, it applies a strain relief. So these little holes are just right for putting a zip tie through, and it will hold the power hole through, the power cable through the hole. And so that's really handy. Like I say, we do have the ones that have the clip and the rivet, but that's just another SKU. It's another inventory thing to keep around. We use zip ties for everything. So to sort of, minimize the vendor, because guess what? People always take the last one and they never say anything. So we're always out. So that's just one less thing you have to worry about. But what's also cool is if you're playing along at home, you can, when you create this, and again, it's named, it's called SR group. So each of these are grouped. But I have it to where it references the power hole, but then I also have the pivot center set at the center of the power hole. So should I want to adjust any of these, they will rotate around the power hole, which is very handy. So you can see it keeps that distance. So if I want to have the power run out this way, that's great if I know that's what's going to happen. Or if I want to keep the power kind of in line with the run of the LEDs, or if I want to kick it out this way a little bit and have it come that way, that's really handy. So that's something else you can do in programming if you want to like kind of go for the 5th advanced AD&D 5th edition. So Anyway, so that's all the, flat cutout letters. Do it all is very handy, and it's good at batch processing and doing shapes like that. So, and then all you got to do is just copy paste. Once you have these, you copy paste, you turn your snap to back on, and then you can just go node to node, and you can just copy paste, boom, boom, make sure everything lines up, and then find that node and hook it to that node. Then you can use dupe checker, and then you can just grab that, make sure everything is ungrouped, hit position and size, and it will dig out any duplicates. You don't have to worry about it. So now you're back to just a single layer. So this is in the marketplace there. This is in the store, the dupe checker. Drop me a line, see if it's worth it to dig this out of the ball of wax. I can put it up in the store if that's something you're interested in. But anyway, super handy. So Aaron, welcome. But that's my method. That's my hack for the flat cutout letter Holy Grail. So anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate you, and hope everything's good. If you have any questions, hit me up.
Check the technique. Check the technique. See if you